CAS's Mergers and Acquisitions Research Centre is already a leader in the academic world, one of the most famous parts of CAS, arguably. And its latest research is truly groundbreaking. It's the first time anyone in academia has done a survey of how easy it is to complete an M&A transaction wherever you are on the planet. Behind this latest research, as always, Professor Scott Moeller and also Anna Faelten. Who'll go first? Tell me the punchline. What's the key area of your research?
Well, what we found looking at 175 different countries is that they do block into three different areas. Of course, there's the mature markets, those that are most attractive for M&A activity. But we also found that the other groupings fell into a transitional area, and then what we call an emerging area, but really is a less attractive area, with about 1/3 being in that mature or transitional group, and approximately 2/3 being in the emerging area.
Because this really is a huge piece of research. How did you go about surveying every country in the world? Anna?
We have looked at 6 different sub-factor groups. So we looked at the regulatory environment in a country, the economic environment, financial environment, and the technological and social cultural environment. And we have then, within each group, had a number of sub-factors. Altogether, we're looking at 36 sub-factors. So we used data which is available already in the marketplace, but then we have compiled it in a completely new and groundbreaking way to measure the maturity or attractiveness of each country. So those sub-factors are a weighted average, or the weight average of those sub-factors make up the maturity score, which ranks countries on a scale between 1 to 5.
And presumably this is incredibly valuable information for investors all over the world and for those who want to engage in M&A activity.
Yeah, I think it highlights the opportunities and threats within markets. So, I mean, the involvement of emerging markets in the M&A arena is growing, and we can see that being reported all over. And we assume that this is going to be the case going forward in 2011, but also on the longer term. So for both for countries or for investors and companies here in the developed world, it's very interesting and useful to see what they can expect when they go to less known markets.
Yes, because this was the thing that really surprised me. The first group, the developed nations, were the ones largely that you would expect to be the places like the UK, the USA. But there was that second group, the up-and-coming area, and there were some real surprises in there.
There were some real surprises in there, although I must say there were some surprises in the mature markets as well. So you saw countries like Malaysia and Israel being up there in that mature area, albeit at the bottom of that group. But then within the that transitional group, we did see a number of the Middle Eastern countries, a number of countries from Latin America that one wouldn't have thought, or there certainly hasn't been as much discussion of them being attractive M&A markets.
You've got a slide which you can run through, which shows us just which countries were in which group.
Well, what we did is, and we can look at this slide here. This slide actually shows the regional differences. It does rank Western Europe and North America, along with Oceania being at the top. But then you see that Asia is very close behind. And then, of course, the Eastern European countries, Middle East, Latin America, and then trailing would be Africa. Africa quite a bit behind the others. But what we found quite interesting is how close behind Asia now is to Oceania and to the North America and Western Europe region. Very interesting, of course, is going to be what we find next year. This is a study that we expect to be updating regularly. This is the first time it's been done, so it's a point in time. But when we look at this next year, I truly expect to see that we're going to find that these regions are going to begin, that the non-mature regions are going to become more mature, especially Asia, so that it will be catching up with the other regions that already are mature.
And you've got another slide which shows the factors which differentiate a mature M&A market from one which is up and coming.
We do, and that chart shows that what actually discriminates M&A activity at different stages of maturity. Very interesting. You can explain 63% of the difference between the mature markets by the socio-cultural factors. Now, this is partly because they have already stable regulatory environments, stable political environments, are technologically quite advanced and so on. So those wouldn't be discriminating factors, but the socio-cultural factors would be. So what we actually see with the transitional markets is that it wasn't the socio-cultural, it wasn't the financial, it wasn't the regulatory, but it was technology that actually drove whether in fact they were an attractive market. Not an attractive market necessarily just because of technology investment. So if you look at this chart again, you'll see that 40% of the determinant for that particular area, these transitional markets, was based on technology.
When you say technology, that's what? Broadband internet and things like that?
Technology is the level of innovation which can be measured by things like patents, by the exports that a country has in terms of its high-tech investments. And then what was the third factor?
The level of R&D investment from the government, so how much they spend on future R&D and future technology.
So a very interesting difference between those mature markets and then the transitional markets.
How is this going to change investment decisions? How can people use this information?
Well, I think, as I was saying before, that it highlights what to look out for before you make an investment in a country. So for a lot of companies, at least here in the sort of more developed markets, looking now for growth, because there isn't really much growth here. So they're looking abroad, looking far away, looking at other regions, in fact. And these are markets that are may not as known to them or may very different from what they're used to. So this research highlights what areas they should be looking out for and where the opportunities are in these foreign markets.
And of course, as you hinted a couple of moments ago, next year when you do the second round of this data analysis, you're going to be able to spot trends. You're going to be able to see which areas of the world are improving, which areas perhaps are going down. Will you come back and tell us more about it then?
We certainly will be. And as I say, we'll be looking at this every year. But one of the things to note, even at this point in time, is that when you are a company that's thinking about doing an investment in M&A, when you've reached that strategic decision that your own internal growth is not enough to do what you need to do and you want to look at other markets, this should be a very useful study to at least initiate that look in terms of which regions first and then which countries within those regions would be the ones that you might want to look. Now, not that countries aren't doing that already on a target-by-target basis, but this would tell you what, in fact, you might want to be able to look at that you hadn't considered.
This must have been very difficult research to complete.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to imply that it wasn't difficult, and we have spent approximately 6 months on this, but with the very, very kind help and support of Allen & Overy, Credit Suisse, and Ernst & Young, our three senior sponsors of the M&A Research Center, we've been able to work together with them in helping to define which factors to include, what the impact of this might be, and then the relative importance of a number of these factors. So it has been really quite nice as a collaborative effort throughout.
Now, this is a huge piece of research. It's not one that we can go into in any great detail in the 5-10 minutes that we have now. Where can anyone else get more information?
Well, we have published this. In fact, here is the report that we have that is available. It's available for download, and I would suggest that people contact us in terms to get a copy.
Professor Scott Moeller, Anna Faelten, thank you very much indeed. The report, as Scott said, is available, and until next time on Cass Talks.